구원해준 나의 천사 나의 세상 난 이상 새 고향이 널 만나러
Ryan loved to stare at Jimin. She loved to hang out with him. She loved to share the same space with him. It didn't matter if he was alone or surrounded by his group of friends. How could she not look at him? He was everything she thought she needed. He was kind. He was sweet. He gave her attention. He was a good listener. The kind of boy who leaned in when you spoke, who remembered the little things, the kind who made you feel like you mattered. And yet, Ryan was everything Jimin didn't need. His attention, though warm and soft, often wandered elsewhere, to someone else, to his crush, Hannah. Hannah was everything Jimin needed, or at least that's how it looked from where Ryan stood, quiet and unseen. But it didn't hurt her. Not really. No, he had no idea about her feelings, no idea about the way she carried them like a secret she couldn't put down. How could she blame him for that? To blame him would be stupid, unfair, sure. So, she smiled. Whenever she could, she was there, sitting next to him, talking, laughing, teasing, sometimes playing silly games, sometimes pretending to study. Each small moment counted, tucked away like a treasure only she could value. To her, the school days with him were the best days. And now their group was standing, coming out of their school bus. They were standing in circles with their backpacks, essentials inside. They were about to go trekking, and they were so excited. Wayne was standing between young men and Jisoo, waiting. Duos or trios? Their teacher asked, a smile on his face. Duos, everyone said in unison, laughing, giggling, looking at their friends. Okay then, Jisoo and Hyunwoo. The teacher called out. They walked forward, standing side by side first. He called out all the duos, one by one. Each of them walked toward and stood in the queue next to each other. Hana and Minji, he said, and Waya quickly looked over at Jimin, her breath caught. Jimin, who was smiling all this time, his smile fades a little. It wasn't really showing, but if you noticed, you could call it out right away. Ryan couldn't stop looking at Jimin. She felt bad for him. She searched for a reason to make him smile. But then, Ryan and Jimin, the teacher said. Ryan looked at the teacher and back at Jimin. Jimin waved his hand at her and she smiled, her heart light. They went through the queue and stood next to each other. Hey partner, Jimin said. Wayne smiled at him. Hey, Wayne said, waiting for the teacher to speak again, her chest still warm from his voice. They were in Bukhansan, ready to trek. So you'll get some questions on your way. The more you answer, the more you can win prizes. The teacher said. Wayne and Jimin look up at each other with wide eyes. Let's go, the teacher says, and they started walking in the same queue, big smiles on their faces. On the way, they see many trees pine, oak, maple, and ginkgo all along the trail. Ryan's eyes caught a piece of paper stuck to the trunk of a tree. Jimin, Ryan says, looking at it. Jimin looks over at the paper and back at her. They giggle before running toward it, snatching the paper before anyone could. They come back to their line. Wayne unfolds the paper and starts reading what's written inside, and Jimin picks at the paper. You see three trial signs: red, yellow, and blue. The red points left, the yellow points right, and the blue points straight. The note says, follow the color of the sun in the morning. Which way do you go? When Ryan finishes, she looks up at Jimin. Jimin looks back at her and thinks, is it blue? Ryan asks. Jimin's eyes widen. It is because the sun rises in the east, which is straight on the trail map. Jimin says. Ryan smiles and holds the paper tight. Ah, it is easy, Jimin says, and Ryan nods, a small smile forming on her lips. But what if it gets difficult later? She says. Jimin ruffles her hair. Hush, shut up, Jimin says, and Ryan chuckles as they walk forward. Jimin looks over at Hana. She is laughing with Minji, looking at the piece of paper they got. His eyes and looks away. Why notices it? Of course she would. You look desperate, Wayne says, even though she does the same. But Jimin's lips oblivious. Do I? He asks, turning away instantly. Why don't you try to talk to her? She asks, wondering why Jimin hasn't made a move yet. I don't know, I'm just scared. He says, to approach her? She asks, and Jimin nods. What? Ryan wonders why she never felt scared to approach him. She should feel the same, right? You should talk to her if you really want to date her, Ryan says. Jimin looks up at her and nods. You're really good at giving advice, Jimin says. Seems you're good at relationships. He asks why and laughs. Trust me, singles give the best advice. She says, Jimin smiles, shaking his head. His eye is fallen under the paper on the way. Oh, he says, running toward the paper and coming back. When he unfolds it, Wayan and Jimin read it together. Which mountain in Seoul has a fortress built during the Joseon dynasty? They look up at each other. Easy, Jimin says, and Wayan smiles. Yes, we are standing on it. They laugh and resume walking. When they were walking through the slope, they stood close to each other, shoulders brushing as they walked on it. Please be careful, the teacher said, and they were carefully stepping on the rock trail. Slow, holding onto stakes they brought for themselves. When Jimin almost slipped, Wayan held his hand, making him steady. Thank you, Jimin whispered, intertwining his fingers with hers tight as they walked forward. Step by step, fingers still locked. Silence between them, but didn't feel empty, it felt safe. After a couple of hours, they finally reached the spot, top of the mountain, taking in the beautiful view of Seoul City skyline. Oh, Wayan said, smiling, looking at it. Beautiful, Jimin said, looking around. His eyes calm, his lips curved slightly. The teacher asked them to sit down and they sat next to each other. Why still holding the papers they got on the way? So one by one, tell me how many papers you guys got. The teacher asked, voice echoing a little. They counted, voices overlapping. 7, Jimin said, and the teacher nodded. After a while, the teacher continued. So it is Jimin and Wayan, he said, and Wayan jumped on her feet, walking toward the teacher, both of them smiling, nervous energy. So there is only one gift. Who would you like to have it between you? The teacher asked, and Jimin and Wayne looked up at each other. Me, Wayne said with a sly smile. It's gonna be me, Jimin said, and the teacher laughed with everyone. The teacher got the gift out of his bag. Ta-da, the teacher said, and showed it to them. Their smiles dropped and they looked at each other. There you go, he said, giving the plush toy that screams when you squeeze it. Wyan held it and looked at it before looking at Jimin. Since Jimin asked for it, she said, giving it to Jimin. No, you asked for it, he said, pushing it back to Wyan. The teacher looked at them and laughed, shaking his head. When they come back, They sat next to each other in the bus. Maya still holding that plushy toy, her fingers playing with it, squishing it sometimes, smiling to herself. Her cheeks hurt from smiling too much, but she didn't care. She turned to Jimin for a second. He was already sleeping, leaning back on the seat. His head tilted slightly, his mouth parted just a little. Maya smiled at him quietly, that soft kind of smile no one else could see. She turned to the window, resting her chin on her hand. The road stretched out in the dark, glowing streetlights passing by one after another, soft light flickering across the glass. The bus hummed low, carrying everyone back down the mountain. Only after some time she felt his head fall gently on her shoulder. Mine froze for a moment, her eyes wide, but she didn't move away. She didn't turn to look at him either. Her lips curved, smile tugging, her heart steady. The window stayed cool against her skin as she kept looking outside. The bus was quiet now, only a few whispers here and there, and the faint sound of someone snoring in the back. But Ryan stayed still, her smile not fading. Ryan was standing outside her class, leaning lazily on the rail, AirPods in, and a book open in her hands. Her focus was deep, eyes running over the lines, and the world around her felt far away. She didn't even notice Jimin walking by until he stopped in his tracks. He spotted her immediately and smiled, the mischievous one that always meant he was about to mess with her. Without warning, he came closer and leaned suddenly, scaring her on purpose. Wyan flinched, almost dropping her book, and looking at him with wide eyes. Gosh, she muttered, pulling her AirPods out quickly and smacking his arm in annoyance. Jimin laughed, his eyes curling into those crescent shapes as he leaned back on the rail, right beside her, almost mirroring the way she stood. You look like you're about to drown inside the book. He teased while exhaled a laugh, shaking her head, just scared of exams. She admitted, hugging the book a little tighter. Jimin tilted his head and glanced down at the open page. That's easy, he said casually, like it was nothing. You don't have to be so scared. Ryan raised her brows at him, unimpressed. Anything is easy for a topper like you, she mumbled, but he only chuckled, shaking his head. Then he leaned closer, pointing at something on the page. Look, you just solve it like this, he explained, his tone soft but sure. Ryan followed his words, eyes fixed on his finger. moving across her notes. She tried to focus, but her gaze kept lifting to his face, which was now just inches away. He looked almost unreal, like someone too perfect to be there beside her. Got it? He asked suddenly, looking up at her. Got Wyan blinked fast and nodded. Yeah, thank you, she replied quickly, closing her book, even though she swore she hadn't processed a single word he said. Gotta go and eat something, Wyan added, trying to change the subject. Jimmy straightened up with an easy nod. I'll come with you, and just like that, side by side, they started walking toward the cafeteria together. Wayne was in her bed. Phone in hand, she saw a text in their school group. Just some classmates talking about random stuff. She yawned, thinking about sleep, ready to put her phone down. Eyes already half closed. But then a new message came from Jimin. She froze for a second, then opened it quickly, fingers hovering heart a little faster, and she texted back. You should have told me earlier. I would have asked mom to cook you something, she wrote. Nah, I'm making ramen now, he replied. Mayan smiled, warmth in her chest, tapping her screen again. Have some chicken with that too, she added, playful. Jimin chuckled from the other side of the screen, testing her back with the same easy tone. And just like that, neither of them realized the time passing. The day disappeared as their phones pinged back and forth. Small jokes, random messages, simple words, but it felt like the whole world had shrunk down to them. It didn't stop. Next day, the day after school hours, sometimes before dawn, they kept texting little things, long messages, silly jokes, check-ins, things that didn't matter to anyone else but somehow mattered to them. At school, whenever they met, it was the same. Glances that lingered a little too long, small smiles that said something no one could ever. Sometimes they made it obvious they wanted to see each other, just little ways that only they understood.